Hello everybody. Super excited for today's brand Alchemy class. Today we're going to be talking about Stylescapes and we'll be getting started in about 3 minutes. I'm going to put on a song, we can hang out, get relaxed, put the distractions away, and get ready to learn something really awesome today. So get that good old timer going. All right. Hello everybody. All right. Welcome. Here we are again, another brand Alchemy. We do this every Wednesday where I teach everything that I know about brand development, which is what I've been doing for the past decade about. So today's episode is on the topic of Stylescapes, which is something that I am very excited about. And this is one of my favorite parts of the entire branding process because this is where the brand really begins to take shape. Everything that we've done up to this point has been mostly related to words. And so now we're actually going to get into visual stuff. So what is a stylescape? Well, this is a stylescape. So this is the most recent stylescape that I created for a client. And essentially what this does is it paints a picture of the visual direction of a brand, right? It's kind of like a glorified mood board. So with this stylescape, I didn't actually design the individual pieces. What we did was we found a bunch of images online and put them together to paint a picture of what the brand could be. And then once the client says, yes, I like this, then we use this as a kind of a guiding North Star, so to speak, of what we create from there, right? So all the pieces that we're now creating for their brand and their identity system are being informed by this document. I'll just kind of quickly show you the zoomed in version just to see the different components. So again, like I said, we just found images online that were within the vibe we were after, and then we put them all together in a way that makes it all feel cohesive. right? So, and later on, I'll show you how this is translating to their actual identity system, logo, etc. So just a little recap. We've been going through every week. We've been going through this whole growth cycle, this brand alchemy process. And the first few classes were focused on the seed, which is strategy, and today's focus on sprout. And last week was also sprout as well. So essentially what we did is we figured out our strategy, which is a combination of our vision, our essence, our audience, and our action. And now we're in the process of translating that to identity and messaging. Identity is just a way to say your kind of visual brand, right? So within this process, there's kind of two parts to it. There's the messaging, which is what it says, right? And then there's the aesthetics, which is how it feels, how it looks, right? So today, we're focusing on the aesthetics. Last week, we focused on messaging. And over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be kind of going back and forth between messaging and aesthetics because they are inextricably linked. So today, it's about aesthetics. All right, so this is a quote we've been revisiting a lot, and it's very relevant today. So the true alchemists do not change lead into gold; they change the world into words. So the entire seed phase was all about this process of turning the world into words. We were basically taking these vague ideas and concepts about the general direction we want to go with our brand and who our audience is, and essentially just distilling that down to some simple words and phrases. I'm not going to get into what that looks like because there's a whole bunch of past videos and classes about that if you want to check that out. So today, we're kind of flipping it a little bit, and we're now changing those words, those simple words, into worlds or into a world. And that's what the Stylescape helps us do. So why even build a Stylescape? What's the point, right? Good question. So the first thing is that we want to look at branding as not just a logo. I think that the common misconception is that your brand is like your logo and your color palette. And that's partially true, but really your brand is a lot bigger than that. It's the grand sum total of all the experiences, any sort of interaction or experience somebody might have with your brand, whether it's through something they look at, something they hear, something they feel. It's all part of the brand. So what the Stylescape does is it allows us to go beyond just the logo and to create literally a world, a brand world, so to speak. It lets us look at the bigger picture because we're focusing not on any individual piece like a logo or color or this or poster or that, but like how it all can work together to create a larger picture, okay? A brand world, so to speak. The other thing that we get when we create a Stylescape is that really helps a lot with navigating what decisions to make regarding how we want our brand to look. I mean, there's an infinite number of possibilities, so it's like, well, what's the right way? And so a Stylescape is a way of getting a ton of clarity and a ton of inspiration on our visual direction for our brand. Another thing that's really key is that the Stylescape helps us communicate our vision, right? So even if we're doing everything ourselves, it's going to help us communicate with ourselves and kind of give us something to anchor to. But if we're like hiring a designer, perhaps, rather than just letting the designer figure everything out, if we can start by building a Stylescape, it's gonna make things way easier because then we're not relying on vague words and terminology to try to communicate our idea, but we're able to show our idea, okay? And then lastly is just for inspiration. The process of building a Stylescape is super inspiring because the whole process is literally just searching for inspiring images and then compiling them into our own design. So again, here's what it looks like, or here's a Stylescape that I created. And it's actually really simple what's going on. And underneath it is a really basic template. And that's essentially what we've got here. So as you can see, the star of the show is actually the person, which is corresponding to your primary audience, right? And we generally like to use just one person, like a headshot, just like this, because it really gives you this sense that we're creating this world around them, or that they're inhabiting this world, right? So in the context of branding, when you create a brand, your audience inhabits that brand, okay? So with the Stylescape, we're taking that to heart. So essentially what we've got here is, on the left side, and again, this is just a guideline. It's not not how you have to do it. But you put your name or a logo on the left, 3 attributes that you want to base the Stylescape on. And we have a whole, check out the Essence class. I believe it was episode 3. And then a color palette. And then we have over here a section that shows some typography. And then we have our audience member here. Maybe we want to show like a website example of a website that is something we'd want to base our brand on, or some textures, or just something that shows like a texture or a vibe. Maybe some business cards we find that are really inspiring. Some decor, brand materials, which is like, letterhead, those sort of things, mock-ups. Maybe we find like a poster that has a certain aesthetic that we like. And then spaces and environments, right? And then we put them all together and compile them into a Stylescape, which gives us a full picture. So again, just like that. So the process is really, it's quite a simple process overall. We just start we discover, we organize, and we synthesize, which is to say, discovering is finding images, finding inspiration, finding things to base our brand off of, right? And then once we find a lot of things that we like, we need to organize those things, prioritize, decide what we actually like, let the sort of cream rise to the top, and find the gems. And then out of those gems, we synthesize them into a Stylescape, which is just a fancy way of saying a brand vision or a visual direction. So when we're looking for inspiration, and I'm going to talk about exactly how to find images and some techniques that I use in different sites and whatnot that can really make the process super easy. But when we're looking for images, we generally want to be looking for things within these categories, right? So we're looking for color palettes. We're looking for logos that we find inspiring. We're looking for identity systems that we find inspiring. We're looking for cards, business cards, posters, print, packaging, space shaping, environments, people, signage, products, pages, typography, iconography, textures, aesthetics, art, illustrations. Pretty much any sort of design really is fair game. So the key here is that we want to start by discovering or deciding on what attributes to base it on, because at the heart of a Stylescape is our brand attributes, and we're kind of building the Stylescape to communicate these attributes, which is just these simple words. So again, we're turning these words into worlds. So if we go back to this Stylescape, the three words that this world is built around are innovative, impactful, and trusted, which I don't know if you can read it, but it says that here on the left side underneath open excellence. So innovative, impactful, and trusted. So when I was looking for images, that I'm thinking these words, right? And I'm looking for things that speak to that, right? Looking for just different aesthetics and vibes. Innovative, impactful, and trusted. Okay? So we want to pick attributes, and I recommend just picking 3, limiting it to 3. So if you've been following along, in episode 3, we go really deep into brand essence and specifically brand attributes, and I show you an exercise that I use to figure out the attributes, okay? It's really quick and easy actually to do it. So just as an example, here's 3 attributes, right? Alchemical, soulful, and grounded. And these are 3 primary attributes that I'm utilizing for the Brand Alchemy series and also for my personal brand. So if I was to begin the process of building a stylescape based on these 3 words, then what I'm going to be doing is just kind of like keeping them in mind and looking for things and that could communicate that in some way. So let's look at how we can actually start to pull this together and find some images and start this process. So the first place we could that we generally start is thinking about color. Now, we don't have to start with color, but I tend to start with color just because it's such a key thing. So color palettes. Now, I'm not going to talk about color psychology right now. I mean, that's a whole class in itself, which I'll probably do at some point. But colors are powerful, and they make us feel certain things. But just to say that like red means passion and blue means security that's not true, right? It's all contextual, right? In one context, red can mean passion and love. In another one, it can mean the devil, right? It's just it's always contextual. But with that said, it is very easy these days to find really beautiful color palettes to use. So for instance, this is called Color Hunt. It's a website, and it's just a website that shows color palettes. And you can go through, and if you see one that you like, I believe you can like favorite them and make like a little collection of them. But we would start by just picking a handful of color palettes that we like, okay? And then you can take screenshots and save them to your computer, which I recommend doing. So here's another example. This is called Coolers, and this is a color scheme generator, which is also really fun to use. And then another option too, say you find an image, which we're going to talk about finding images here in just a second. Say you find an image and you're like, ooh, I love the color palette that is in this image, right? You can actually use tools like, so this is a tool that Canva created. I don't know what the name of it is. I don't even know if it has a name, but you can just Google image to color palette, and then it should be the first one that pops up. But basically you just drag and drop an image, and then it just gives you the color palette. Boom. Super awesome. So with color palettes, I recommend less colors, the better, right? Generally, like a highlight, a base color, and a neutral color is kind of my rule of thumb. I like to use not very many colors. I mean, if we go back up to, if we go to here, right? It's essentially just this dark blue and red, and then there's a white, and then a few shades of gray and other shades of blue, which are just kind of derivative. But really, it's this dark, deep blue, a bright red, and white. That's it. For the brand Alchemy stuff, it's basically just black and gold, right? So we don't need to have a bajillion colors. But let's say that your brand has a very sort of fun and playful kind of vibe about it. Maybe in that case you want a lot of colors. So again, it's all contextual, but I always tend to think that less is more. All right, so how do we find good images to use in our Stylescape? My favorite place is Behance. The reason it's my favorite place is because this is a website for designers to show off their work. So pretty much everything is just quality by default. So for instance, say I was building my Stylescape for brand Alchemy or something that I want to have be black and gold. So all I had to do is just type black gold in the search, and right off the bat I have lots of great things to pick right here. Okay. So the key here is that when you find an image that you like, just save it to your computer, right? Set up a folder, and you can organize these folders however you like. Sometimes I just have one master folder and I just drag every image into that folder, and then I organize it later. I think that's probably the best way, just to make it really quick and easy. So as you go through, just anything that looks good, don't think too hard about it. For instance, like the one here in the middle with the pineapple and the girl, like something about that just looks so cool. And like you see this style kind of showing up where it's like this really, really dark kind of model, so I guess you could call it, or statue, and then there's like these gold highlight type of things. It's a really cool vibe. So I would save those. And then, so Behance is, again, amazing place to find inspiration. Here's another, Pinterest is another really, really good place. So again, black gold, I type black gold design because Pinterest isn't just a design place. So you're going to need to like get more specific. And exactly what to search for can be also tricky. And it might also depend on your attributes, right? So if you decide, for instance, in this example, if we say alchemical, soulful, and grounded, I could start by typing in alchemy and then see what comes up, and I might find things that are related to alchemy. I know that gold is relevant to alchemy, hence the black and gold color palette, and so I can, search in that way. So we kind of have to get creative in how we find the images. So another option is obviously good old Google Images. Now, you'll notice that you get a lot of garbage when you search in Google Images, so it's worth a shot, if you are having a hard time finding a specific thing, just because it gives you more results. But generally, you're going to find the highest quality stuff at places like Behance or Pinterest. Now, I just want to point out, a stylescape isn't something that you're going to put on your website, right? It's just an internal tool for figuring out what direction to take the look and feel of things, right? So don't worry about copyright stuff or anything like that. That's totally irrelevant. This is just for you, basically, okay? And anybody that you may be working with. So we want to save in folders as we're searching, right? And just create a folder full of inspiring images that are within the general vibe you're looking for. And you might even find too that as you're looking, especially on Behance, if you just go to their home page, there's just so much inspiring stuff that you may have not even thought of, and so sometimes you could even get an entire brand idea or visual direction idea just based off of one image that you randomly find on Behance, right? So as you're searching, just save them into a folder, and then what we want to do is organize those folders, right? So what I do when I'm doing this sometimes is I'll organize by, I might make a folder for environments and spaces, okay? And then just put all the environmental kind of space shaping related photos in there. Another one might be, identity, identity mock-ups, showing business cards and packaging and stuff like that. So whatever's relevant for you works, or however you want to organize is great. The key thing is that we want to start to identify what ones you really, really like, okay? So once we've found a bunch of images that are relevant to our specific brand attributes that we want to communicate, because again, remember what we're doing is we're taking those words and turning them into a world, which is the stylescape, and we're using these different images to do that, okay? So now the question is, where do we design the style? What do I use to design the stylescape? So I personally use Affinity Designer, which is a kind of a simple version of Photoshop. It's a really great app. You can use whatever works best for you. The easiest, most accessible thing is probably going to be Canva, which is a web app. Another one for anybody that's a Mac user, Keynote is an amazing tool. You can actually use Keynote to design a lot of stuff, particularly stylescapes. Affinity Designer, obviously, and then Photoshop is another option. For most people especially that are not design oriented, I would recommend Canva or Keynote. I personally don't really like or use Canva, so I just don't really have much to say, but I do know that it's a very popular tool. Okay, so open up the app of choice, and then what you want to do is set up your document and create a blank stylescape. So there's not really any hard and fast rule as to how to do this, but basically you want it to be really wide, okay? And this is for a reason. Usually we think, if you think about a website, it's kind of the opposite of this. It's really, the whole website kind of starts up and goes, it goes down, right? It's kind of the same shape, but just sideways. And we want to get out of thinking in terms of a website, right? We're not creating a website. This is going to inform your website. It's going to inform everything that you design and create for your brand ultimately. But by creating it really wide, it gets us thinking in terms of like an environment or like a panorama, okay? Now, if you need specific dimensions, like my practice especially when I'm designing for clients, is I do basically, so like a normal like widescreen is 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels tall, okay? Which is generally like the size of this, the video you're now looking at is basically it's that ratio. So what I do is I just do 3 wide, okay? So basically what that means is 1920 pixels times 3, which is like 5007 something. I don't know the exact number. So I make it that 5000 some odd pixels wide by 1024 tall. And there's specific reasons for that because it actually makes it really nice to give previews. Like, let me show you an example up here actually. So if I'm presenting to a client, here's the stylescape, and then we can zoom in. So there's basically 3 zoomed in frames that fill the entire screen because each frame is 1920 by 1080, right? Boom, boom, boom. Now, in some cases, you may not want to do it that big because then if you find smaller, lower resolution images, then they might look fuzzy when you get them like to the right size if you have a really big, full screen stylescape. So you could do something like maybe 500 pixels tall by 3000 pixels wide, right? So anyways, you create the blank scape, and then the next step is that you just start dragging in all of those favorite images, right? The ones that you identified as your favorites, drag them in. Here's what it looks like when I do it. So you can kind of see that in the middle is the stylescape, and we'll zoom in on that one in a little bit. But like I just dragged all these images in and left the blank stylescape in the middle. And so then once I have all my images in, then I just get to pick around and drag them in and resize them and kind of get them all fitting so that I'm basically just creating a collage, right? It's just a vision board, really. So once we have all of our images in the document, which is really, really helpful, then we can synthesize those images into a composition, right? Into a stylescape. And again, if you're not a designer, don't let this freak you out. Everybody knows how to make a vision board, right? You just cut out images from a magazine and then you paste them on a big board and then you have a vision board. That's really what this is, except we're just doing it digitally rather than on paper. So here's a few tips when in the process of doing this. So tip number 1 is to break up the grid, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. Tip number 2 is remove backgrounds on images that, like, for instance, when you pull in your audience, kind of like audience member headshot, you generally want to remove the background from their head. There's actually tools online now. If you just type in Google remove background from image, there's actually tools that'll like do it for you automatically, instantly. Pretty amazing. And then lastly is color correction, which depending on what app you're using can be tricky. But say you find an image that is just like has an amazing design, but the colors are not the right colors to fit the vibe, right? So you just color correct and then boom. So essentially what that means is that we go from this to this, right? And this is actually not even quite finished yet. It's still a little messy, but it gives you an idea. And you can kind of see how the branding that I've been, doing for Brand Alchemy is based on this. Now I'm still working on all this, and it's all still going to be growing and evolving as we go. So here, let me show you a few other examples of stylescapes that I've created. So this is actually one I was working on a while ago that I've since abandoned. But I just want to show you kind of how different they can be. Now this one's like really, really wide. But we just have a few colors. I found a few really interesting images that I was kind of going for this like rainbow holographic kind of a thing. And I just found images and little bits and pieces that just had that vibe, right? And the 3 words that I was going with here: inspired, soulful, and creative. So this was for my design agency. Yeah. All right, so here's another one I did for a client. And then also underneath is how it actually translated to their website. So because some of the images that I used in the Stylescape were actually, like for this little clapper thing, it was actually an image I got from a stock photo site. So I was able to use it on the website, which is pretty nifty. All right, here's another. So when I'm doing client Stylescapes, I generally do 3, because essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating 3 different potential brand worlds or brand directions that we could go, and then letting them decide what one they like best and how we'd like to refine that one, and then I finish that one, and then that becomes the basis of everything moving forward. So for instance, this is for my client Cresta. So we created 3 Stylescapes, and you can see they all kind of have a similar theme going on. They all kind of look similar, but they're all each very different, right? And look at each one has a different set of words. So this top one, we went with clean, fresh, and minimal. Looks clean, fresh, and minimal to me, right? So that's kind of what we're doing is we want to figure out how to communicate these ideas, these words, to the subconscious using visual imagery, textures, aesthetics, etc., right? So the second one was based on the words empowered, delicate, and bold, right? So empowered, and bold, that's got that, there's a sort of richness, right? So like with the colors palette, I chose colors that have this sort of empowered, bold vibe, but the delicate kind of has this like floral softness, which is what the purple and the green, right? Delicate also, there's a lot of flowerness going on, butterfly, right? So you kind of see how like I'm looking for ways of communicating these simple words in a visual way. And then finally, this one is healthy, vibrant, and luxurious, right? And this speaks to that to me. So she liked the middle one the most, and then we had some tweaks that we wanted to make to it, and this was the result, and the result at the top, and then here's the website that I created for her based on the Stylescape. So you can kind of see that like how it carries through, right? But it also changes, right? So we're not like stuck on it. It just gives us something to base it off of, and even though the fonts are different in the final product versus the Stylescape, they're super similar, right? And that's just, we're trying to just get clarity on like what direction, not the specific destination, just the direction, okay? And then zooming or scrolling down on her site, here's a little section too. So again, it's not exactly like the Stylescape, but it's analogous, right? It's similar. It's very, very, very close, and it's resonant. Okay, so here's another one. So this was for a client project I'm currently working on. 3 Stylescapes were created. They liked the first one. We made some tweaks, and then here's the result up at the top. And then now here are some designs that I've created based on the Stylescape. You see how it's all relevant, it's all resonant, it fits within that world, right? Nothing feels out of place, and that's the key. So you can imagine, like, if, say you were hiring a designer, how easy, how much easier would it make life to be able to just be like, hey, here's a Stylescape, make the brand based on this. It's gonna, you're still gonna have to like go back and forth and figure things out, but it's gonna really make the process a lot smoother. Okay, so I wanted to, before we wrap up, I did want to show you kind of a little look behind the scenes of what it looks like in my process of building one of these. So, okay, so here is Affinity Designer. And let's start with this one. This is the Magic Media Stylescape. So what I did with them was I started by creating these 3 kind of pre-Stylescape directions. I just kind of grabbed a few quick images, picked some quick color palettes, and came up with a concept just to show general ideas of what I'm thinking. And with this specific project, they didn't have the budget for me to do 3 Stylescapes, so I basically was getting them to pick one of these to base it on, and then I would build one Stylescape based on it. So what they decided was they kind of wanted mostly the first one, but with some tweaks, and we had some conversations that led from one thing to another, and so let me show you. So this was like, essentially I kind of created different variations as trying, but you can kind of see that, they're all very similar, but the top one is the one that ended up being the one. But you can kind of see, like, I just dragged in all these images, and then, like, these look really nice, right? I like this one too. Like, where this was going is kind of cool. So that's that one. Let's look at the Alchemy one. All right. So we have, all these images. Kind of look through them a little bit. So what you'll find too on like places like Behance, you'll find a lot of case studies of identity systems and designs, and they generally look like this. You start at the top and you kind of scroll down, but when you save the image, it's actually just one big long image. So there's so much to grab from here, right? Right, scrolling down, any part of this could be cropped and utilized, right? Look at how, and it just looks all so nice. Here's even more, right? There's just so much. Look at this. That's really cool, right? So I could just literally, be like, so let's just say I really liked this. I could just crop that and boom, pop it over into the Stylescape, right? So what I do is I kind of like, I'll start pulling things into the Stylescape, and then just kind of moving things around, like, see, this is actually its own thing there. So yeah, I was just really going for that black and gold kind of like really cool artistic vibe. This is a really nice. Right. Let's look at, okay, so this one's cool. So I'll show you this process. So with Crestas, here's how I did it. So I did all the image digging, and then I created like a folder for each Stylescape direction, right? And I knew what the words were for each one, right? So this top one is clean, fresh, and minimal. So I was just finding images that spoke to that. Clean, fresh, minimal. This color palette I created, clean, fresh, and minimal, right? All the images, it just has that vibe, right? And then I did this one. This is what was it? Bold, empowered, and delicate, right? Bold, empowered, delicate. All these kind of say that to me. And then this last one is a healthy, vibrant, and luxurious. So yeah, using that gold to bring in that sense of luxury, and then like lots of stuff about like spa vibe and families having a good time together and whatnot. I was also kind of thinking like bringing some Art Deco elements in, like that. That's kind of cool. So then once I have these three things together, then I basically just kind of started dragging the images that I like the best, out of this, started pulling pieces in and making composition. And this is what we ended up with. Yeah. Okay, so then I think here's the last one I'll show you. This is one that I was working on that I haven't finished yet for my personal brand. So I'm kind of going back and forth between like the black and gold theme and then a sort of iridescent holographic kind of a vibe like this. And I'm actually thinking about maybe even using both, like using this vibe for like the Andy Freeland personal brand, and then all the brand Alchemy specific stuff will be based on this one. Even the audio, like, so audio Alchemy as well, right? Similar. So again, yeah, like what I was doing is I just went and went on Behance and Pinterest and whatnot and just found all these cool holographic designs. And like, I mean, look at that. That's so cool. So it's just really like, just be inspired, It's like this is a really fun part of the process where we get to just dig for inspiration and just see what else is out there that's just really cool and innovative, and we can pull that in, use it as a basis for our brand direction. That's kind of interesting. And one thing that I really liked when I was searching through these is this idea of like, it's got that like holographic foiledness to it. I don't know what it's called exactly, but it kind of has that shine or glow. This is really cool. I don't even know what that is. It's just some little illustration, but I just like the style, the vibe of it, right? Even that, that's really cool. Here's some some cards and posters. So again, that sort of holographic, and just all these different ways of expressing that. Oh, that's cool. Some like books. This is really interesting. It looks like a chrysalis or something. Even that one. Let me zoom out. So yeah, so once you have a nice folder of images, then you have something to work with, and you start pulling them in. And it doesn't need to be super. I mean, this could be, for all intents and purposes, like I could call this done, and this is enough for me to like say I was to hire a designer. I could just hand this over to him and be like, okay, base it on this, and then it's gonna make the whole process a lot easier. Ooh, these cards, I like that. Just how the iridescence like is printed on the edges. And even this thing, it's just like, yeah, just like lots of really cool things. So, Tekla says, I love these Alchemy colors. Yeah, me too. The black and gold, something really great about it. It can feel a little bit like kind of dark and mysterious. Like this, I'm going to change this. This guy's a little too serious. It's just a little too a little too dark. So I'm trying to figure out how I can like lighten up the vibe with this so it doesn't feel so heavy, because it kind of does have that, but like like this for instance doesn't have that so much. So again, it's just a matter of like curating inspiring images and then just put them together, kind of like DJing. This is kind of cool. I don't know, these like are popcorns or something. And then even this one's nice. Like that kind of stuff. Really like that. That's beautiful. Oh, and then the other thing too that I really, really liked, where did it go? It was a poster. I think it's right here. This poster. There, I'll move this out of the way. Yeah, this poster. Check this out. Okay, so I really like this. Just the black and gray, and then there's that touch of gold again. So, I'm really feeling this like black and gray and gold kind of palette. And there's just how that can be expressed is unlimited. Tekla, Scorpio here, so dark and mysterious does it for me. Yeah, totally. And, as we were talking about brand archetypes in episode 3, that's another thing too to take into consideration when doing this is like, so in episode 3, we talk about brand attributes, which are like the specific words we use. So in this case, I'm going for alchemical, grounded, and soulful, I believe are the 3. And I think when I was building this, I was using different words. I'm always kind of just tweaking and changing, It's not like a static thing, like you pick the words and it's done, it constantly evolves and you learn and grow as you go on. But with that said, so on one hand, we've got our brand attributes that we want to use as a kind of guiding principle. But then on the other hand is that we've got the archetype, right? So in my case, the archetypes for my brand are the alchemist, which corresponds to Scorpio, and then there's the revolutionary, which is the secondary archetype, which corresponds to Aquarius, and then also the explorer or philosopher, whatever way, which corresponds to Sagittarius. So, Tekla, it's interesting you say that because I was using Scorpio and the alchemist archetype as a guiding principle for this, right? I mean, it's literally brand alchemy, right? So it's interesting that you notice that, you resonate with that because your sign, Scorpio, is resonant with this in an interesting way. Pretty cool. So, all right, let's hop back over. So we're pretty much at the end here. If anybody has any questions about this process, I would be more than happy to give you some answers. And let me get back. There we go. So currently right now, this is my primary focus is translating this stylescape into a complete identity system and set of brand guidelines for open excellence. And you can just see, I just want you to really look at this and see, it made my life so much easier to design this because, look, it's we know that, for instance, if you look at this poster, this fundraiser poster at the top, I found this poster image and it's got these floral patterns in the background, right? So what we did is we figured out we needed a concept of some sort of design concept to create posters like this one and this set of 3 over here. And what we came up with was feathers. And the old logo Open Excellence is their new name, which we created. They used to be the Foundation for Excellence in Mental Health Care, and their logo was this sort of it kind of was like a stylized phoenix wings type of thing. Wish I could show it to you right now, but I don't have a way to do that. But anyways, so what we decided to use feathers as a motif to kind of nod to that old logo because they were kind of stuck on it. They were really having a hard time letting go of it. So that's where the feather motif came from, and it just works so well. So I mean, you can look I literally just recreated this fundraiser poster in my own way, and there's their new logo, which I created. And even the logo, I mean, look at these posters up here. It fits, right? Even this S on the outside of this building here. You can't see my mouse, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you've been able to follow what I'm talking about. So up on the stylescape, towards the right, there's that like S on the side of that building. You know, that's like literally the logo here. It's a circle with a sort of stylized E in it. So everything that I really need to create their identity system is in the Stylescape. I just have to recreate it custom because all this stuff here is just randomly grabbed off the internet. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's Stylescapes. So next steps. If you're following along, if you're in the collab group, and if you just want to be growing your brand, I highly recommend you do these next steps. Is to find designs and images that inspire you, that are relevant to the attributes that you want to communicate through your brand, and then to organize, pick the best of those, and then to create a stylescape, right? So again, remember, it's discover, organize, and synthesize. Super easy. So then next week, we're going to go back to messaging for part 2. And we're going to look at how to create branded messaging. And essentially, we're going to be applying the voice filter that we created last week to the core messaging that we also created last week. And out through that process, we'll create our branded messaging. And so I purposely wanted to go kind of back and forth between messaging and aesthetics because they work hand in hand, okay? We want what we say to be aligned with what it looks like and how we say it, right? What the vibe is. So there you have it. That's Stylescapes in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions about this process or want to know more, just feel free to ask. I also want to mention the collab. If you're looking to get clarity, support, and a momentum in your brand process and just in your creative process, really, then the collab is a community of powerful creators, and it's also a mastermind. We have weekly sessions where we work together and do our thing and grow. And so that's $100 a month. If you are interested, reach out to me, Andy at opulentcreative.com, and we can see if you're a fit. So awesome. That's it. Thank you. So Tekla, thanks so much for being here, Tekla. Tekla says, I really appreciate all these sessions. So helpful. Thanks. Thank you for lending me your attention and for showing up. It means a lot. All right. That's all for this week's Brand Alchemy. Have a beautiful week and weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.